This is Campbell McCrary from Amvest Capital in New York. Welcome to the Hillcrest Energy Technologies live webinar. Today's Tuesday, February 14th. Hillcrest Energy Technologies trades on the CSE as HEAT and on the OTCQB as HLRTF and as 7HIA on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. Hope you enjoy today's program. It'll be also be available in on-demand replay about 2 hours after we wrap up today. Amvest is a New York-based specialist investment management corporate finance firm based on natural resources and related technologies and transition technologies, to be precise. Please note this call is most definitely, absolutely, positively for informational purposes only. Have with us CEO and Director Don Curry, Chief Commercialization Officer James Boland, Chief Technology Officer Ari Berger, and Harold Hangstenberger, Managing Director, Owner, and Founder of Systematic. Thank you all for coming today. Welcome back, and would love to get a fresh introduction / update. A lot of eager followers here, and please be patient for the introduction to some of the new people to the Hillcrest family. Thank you. Oh, and please share your questions. So if you see that box there, ask a question of management, type it in, send it in. Only we see it, and we'll ask it now in real time. And if you like what you're seeing now, you can share this event in a few social media platforms, and also prepare an email. The original link that you used to log in and join actually will turn into a link to the on-demand replay as well. So with that, Don, why don't you kick it off?
I appreciate it as always, Campbell. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present the company, talk about to the new investors and to the current investors. It's interesting that I think we just mentioned almost 250 people registered and attending, which is a great number to have. It might be the highest number of people that we've had. Also of notice to us is we're very pleased with the amount of European and German people who have registered and who are on the site. So thank you very much for staying up as late as you are over at that time. This webinar is something that is going to be a little different in some aspects for us. We encourage you to notice the forward-looking statement. There's many times that we talk about it and glaze over it, but in this particular presentation, we're going to be talking about some things that haven't been, they're management assumptions. There's values that we're going to discuss, management assumptions, numbers that have certain criteria that are attached to it. So we would encourage you to understand this forward-looking statement, and we'll go on from there. One tech platform. For those, some of this will be a repeat. Some of it's new to most others. So the one tech platform that we have. It's revolutionizing in power inverter market. Our ZVS inverter is a technology. It's a platform technology that can be used in various products. So, for instance, our EV traction inverter is a product. Well, companies, if you're a one-product company, that product's not going to be very valuable. The technology that the tech team has developed is a platform that can be used in many, many, many different sectors. We're focusing and starting on EV. You can see by the people involved that we have a great network and connection and experience there. But it can go into energy storage solutions, wind, solar, power, all the items that are shown here on the screen. So the end result is that there's multiple opportunities for us to be able to access revenues from various sources. We have a sustainable competitive advantage, quite frankly. The ZVS inverter, it serves as a platform, as I just mentioned, and it can be applied to any power conversion application and achieves new levels of energy, reliability, and performance. Efficiency is the key, and we've been able to show that across many sectors. You go right over to the right-hand side. We're deploying the platform into numerous applications, from EV traction, again, I'm repeating myself, grid-connected power generation, energy storage, and EV charger. In the middle, we say this: we believe we are the first to successfully deploy a fully ZVS-enabled power inverter technology into the automotive sector. I should say, and I said this when I presented down in the United States, we say ZVS in Canada. For our American friends, it would be ZVS, I guess. Speed to market. This part is something that we think we'll have some new information for the people that are involved in the presentation. We're lucky to have our Chief Commercialization Officer on the call with me, James Boland. James has over 30 years experience in energy sector, integrating various technologies. He was just recently was an owner manager of Global Power Technologies, which had business worldwide and has been a valuable addition to our company. The speed to market, I've talked about this before. We're very, very proud of the fact that from April 2021, we've gone from an idea to building a team to a proof of concept to a commercial prototype. And in there, we've published white papers and signed MOUs. We have done things in less than 2 years that I don't think has been matched in a market such like this. So we're very, very pleased at our speed to market. And then from there, what I'd like to be able to do is move this on to the next slide, where we'll have James talk about some of the various opportunities, commercialization engagements that we have, which exceed the two that we've announced previously. James,
Thanks, John.
If you'd like to take this.
Sure. So just a bit of background. People use the term R&D every day. In this context, we're past R and we're well into D. So we're in pre-revenue D, to be precise. So it's development. So what that means, just for what we're going to talk about, is that to a very large degree, technology risk has been addressed. The platform is in place. So now it's about what we would call deterministic engineering work. So it's much lower risk. It's entirely customer centric. It's highly prioritized and it's very focused. So the result of that is we're going to have a suite of application specific products based on the platform. So the way we do that is we follow very proven industry standard processes for managing a funnel of projects, for prioritization, and so on. So second point of background is that, especially in the last 8 months, especially for EV companies, they're under increasing pressure to compress timelines and accelerate product launches. So they're challenged to do that for sure. And if you read about it, you'll know what I'm talking about. So this is good for us because we're well positioned. We can accommodate that compression, mostly because of our recent success in completing the commercial prototype. So we'll show you what that means. If you look at this chart, there are 4 key milestones that are kind of in front of us for the phase that we're in right now. First one is Hillcrest bench pre-testing. So that's where we take a version of our inverter system in our own lab. We do pre-testing. We're somewhat limited in how high we can load that in terms of real spinning load, but we can learn a lot from doing that. We're almost finished that now as it would apply to all of these projects here. Second one would be bench system level testing. So that's where we load it up to the maximum amount we can on the bench, meaning in our lab. And then that puts us in a position where we can take that system, we can take it to a customer site, integrate it with their system, and then load it right to the max. We'll be very confident when we get there that we'll be able to do that because of the nature, the inherent nature of the technology. The last one you see there is a live integrated vehicle demo. So this is really about max load and as close as possible to road conditions. We are at various stages with different people. You've noticed here that we're well beyond the 2 initiatives that were announced previously. I won't go through each one of these, but to give you the flavor here, you can see there's quite a bit of parallel activity, and that's one of the reasons we can accommodate the need for compression. So if you look at number 1, Global Auto OEM number 1, that's a company that's basically provided us with a proprietary traction motor for integration with our latest generator inverter on our bench. This is a big deal because they're basically trusting us with their proprietary technology. They're genuinely interested in seeing the integration with our tech and giving us the chance to show them. And then it kind of facilitates us skipping some steps with some other projects. So this will put us in a great position to get to their site with that proven integrated system, very high probability that it'll really prove out well at their site. And then we'll be able to work on the last step, which is to basically handle all the integration issues to get it working in their vehicle. So that's a great example. You can see that there are a couple of others. The OEM2 is very similar. Then there's the one that you've heard about, which is Hercules. That one's actually a fairly fast-track project because they're an exceptional group. They don't really fall into, they're kind of in their own category. So they are excited about getting an in-vehicle demo going as soon as, March, April. So that's why we have that there. Now, the auto suppliers are, like tier one automotive suppliers is what we're referring to there. And we have a number of those going on where we're carrying out work right now for sort of 2023, early 24 completion. There's one more on there called Grid Connect supplier. This is a market that we foresee coming kind of close on the heels of the EV market, where we're going to use our technology to do different things in the field, like say connecting a solar farm or connecting an isolated generator project to the grid, or running one on loads that's like a grid but isolated. So there's a lot of other issues. It's a very different application. Behind this, it's important to note there's a pretty big group of other players that we've obviously been engaged with. This is just a kind of a snapshot of the group that we're in deep with right now. So and that's a reflection of our prioritization right now. So the Grid Connect one, the equivalent of putting an inverter in a car is basically a field trial. That's where we put it in a cabinet and get it into a field demo. So that gives you an idea that we are in a really good spot, highly engaged with live customers. And you can see at the top, it says negotiate commercial supply agreements. The whole point of this is that we get down the road to the point where customers are comfortable enough and they're prepared to negotiate commercial supply agreements. This is where we say, okay, we're gonna agree to supply application specific inverter design and scope of supply for one of your vehicle runs, and it's a contract, and we move forward. So that starts anytime after we do on-site demos, and each customer has their own process, and we have to, obviously we're engaged in that, and at that point we're respecting their processes, but that's where we want to be.
Okay, thanks, James. I think I'd like to highlight what you mentioned about the European OEM that's provided a motor. Ari had it best, is that shows an incredible amount of trust in the company, in our technology to the level that it's reached at this point in time. We were quite pleased when we have the motor in Systematic. We're setting it up for integration, our technology to integration with that motor, and it basically moves or accelerates any sort of process we would have with the company by them providing that to us, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I should have actually emphasized that more, Don. And the other thing here is that because of that, partly because of that, and partly because of the big milestone we hit around Christmas with the commercial prototype, it's allowing us to kind of skip a step with a number of these projects, and that speaks to us being able to compress timelines. So okay. It's a good place to be.
We'll let the investors know that what we're trying to do here is have a little bit of a question and answer, which may answer some of your questions. So, James, we had publicly stated a couple of times that we might have the bandwidth to handle 3 to 5 companies, closer to 3 than 5, and yet we're showing 7 engagements on this list. And as you mentioned, there's some behind it. What has changed that would allow us to handle more than 3 to 5, which is obviously a very, very positive change for us?
Well, so it's a bit to do with the fact that we have developed customer relationships, that's for sure. But the fact that we've established this common commercial prototype that can basically, it allows us to use it as a building block, speeds up the integration with a customer's motor, with their drivetrain. So we don't have to start at step 1 with everybody on the application specific design process. We can basically apply that in all the work that we've done so far. We can apply directly to this process and essentially, crudely speaking, skip a step. That's why we can take on, there's a lot of parallel work going on in here, lots of 2-fers and 3-fers on work that the team is doing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So shareholders that had written emails beforehand and asking if there's anything new, I think one of the biggest positives in this particular slide is that while it's been understood that we're working with 2 groups, we're effectively in commercialization and engagements with 6 groups, working with them with more behind. So it's substantially larger scope than what we'd been talking about before.
Yeah.
Thanks, James. This particular slide here, this is an interesting thing. We're talking about the incredible growth opportunity in the EV sector. This is EV alone, so we know that offers incredible growth. And one of the, as early as this morning, there was a number put out that the automotive, there's been over $1 trillion worth of EVs sold worldwide, which exceeds the estimates by over a year. So a year to year and a half is what they were thinking out, that they would get to the $1 trillion. So that James had used the word accelerating. The industry accelerating faster than they had thought it would, and that we had thought it would. But we're right there in the mix. We talk about single models. So there are companies that do single models up to 50,000 vehicles for a model. There's a company that does 1.7 million vehicles, EVs, but that's over many models. Now, each vehicle contains 1 to 4 motors, which means that it needs 1 to 4 inverters. In this particular example, if we use it, we've been talking about OEMs that traditionally or publicly have said that they're going to be producing 100,000 of a model per year. 100,000 of a model per year. And most of these, let's just say they have a 1.5 to 2 motors in them. We'll go with 2 motors average. The EV inverter, our traction inverter, is estimated to be $500 to $600 US. Two of those inverters in any particular model at 100,000 a year is literally over $100 million at current rates per agreement. Now, we show in here EV application 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're actively involved in talking to these various groups. So we could see a way, and this is very conservative what we're talking here, management assumptions are that we believe we can see our way to revenues of multiple millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in or around the 2027, 2028 mark. This does not include non-EV uses. So grid applications, everything else. That adds a whole new level of potential revenues onto the bottom line. But when we look at this, and I don't think we've ever really talked about the full price, but you can see here that when it starts being implemented, end of 2023, beginning of 2024, it ramps up substantially very quickly as the customers or the application move on to the model, the development of that model. We've talked about a tech platform, again, with next generation capabilities. For that, I want to make a couple of other comments here. Again, these are management assumptions that we think we're being very conservative here. So our ZVS has many different potential values to whoever's using it. But first and foremost, when you're an OEM, what we've heard many times, it's about cost control. And our inverter, we believe, like I said, will be equal to or less than current inverters that are on the market with far greater capability, efficiency-wise. one of the numbers that we use for efficiency is that for every percent of efficiency, it's been stated by others that it could be worth 2 times the range, an increase of 2% more in range. Now, our cost savings on the inverter, by using the inverter, we believe that there's a cost saving in protective shielding for the cables, capacitor size, many different things go into this. And conservatively, we believe that there's about a $700 cost saving per vehicle using the inverter. Now, if you're using 100,000 cars in any given model over a given year, that's a $70 million savings to the OEM, let alone the benefits that go to the end user, which is increased range, so on and so forth. The lighter weight, increased range, more efficient batteries. This is all part of it. But when an OEM is talking to us, we firmly believe that one of the things that will attract them not only is the inverter capabilities, the technology platform, it's the actual savings that it could result in their construction of the vehicle.
Don, it might be worth just emphasizing that we have many conversations with customers, and to some people, a couple of percent doesn't sound that exciting, but we hear it all the time from customers that those percents really matter. They understand the payback of that at the system level very well. And if you apply that to the grid connect market, the multiplication factor on those few percents is big numbers.
Yeah, we can go back to a comment that was made by the CEO of Lucid in December, that any increase of efficiency by the 2 to 3% saves hundreds of dollars on the construction of an EV. Our tests are showing on the motors that we've done, we've reached over 13%. Now, will it average 10? Will it go to 13%? But you can start to see the numbers adding up and why there's a value to us, for us, with talking to any of the OEMs. So well put. Thank you, Jake. The next generation capabilities, this is something that for some will be a repeat, but when we go and do a presentation, when we're talking to people, it is a fact we believe that we're the first to be able to perfect ZVS, soft switching in an EV inverter. And when we get to ask the question in a lot of the presentations is, can you explain the difference between soft switching and hard switching and why that makes a difference? And for that, Ari, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to have you come in and give a brief explanation of the difference between the two.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Don. The way I choose to explain this is actually going to something very simple and something all of us know from our daily lives. So an inverter is basically a set of switches that is switching in a certain way to control a motor, control the grid, whatever. I'd like to have a look at one switch and use the example that we have at home as a light bulb switch. Very simple. We all know the light bulb switch. We turn it on, the light goes on, and so on. The similarity here is that, and this requires a bit of imagination, when we press the switch to turn on the light, for a very short period of time, the mechanical switch might wibble a bit, might vibrate, might create some sparks. There's some phenomena going on there at the moment of contact. Same things happen when we turn the switch off. Now, these phenomena create losses in that switch, which of course we don't pay attention to because it's only one time we turn the light on, maybe a few hours later we turn it off. We don't really notice any heat generated in that instance. But imagine that you're doing that switching 100,000 times per second, which is what's happening in the inverter. So that is what we call hard switching. The moment of engagement and disengagement of the switch, things happen there. Could be small, could be a bit bigger. Something happens, but then it accumulates. 100,000 times per second accumulates to a level that sometimes switching losses at, for example, at the level of the commercial prototype that we're doing now, the 250 kilowatt, these losses accumulate to about half of the total losses. So half of the total losses of the inverter come from this switching. That is hard switching. Soft switching means we don't have these losses at the moment of engagement and disengagement. I hope that clarified it. Of course, in an inverter, there are lots of details and dynamics, but that's what we're doing, and that's why we have the increase of efficiency of, we're talking 1%, but I want to bring to the discussion a different number. I just said that we're eliminating 50% of the total losses of the inverter. So that becomes now on the inverter level, that becomes a substantial number, which then goes to less cooling that is needed and so on. You're muted, I think.
We've got a very humble technical team because, quite frankly, people have been trying for this for years, and actually we've had conversations with organizations that have tried and not been able to perfect the soft switching, which is a real compliment to the tech team that we have operated by, or run by Ari and Harold. Moving over to the right-hand side of the screen, EMC, electric compatibility. Harold, if you wouldn't mind giving an example of why this is important for us and where we think we're front and center, because it is a big part of the equation too.
Yes. EMC, as you mentioned, electromagnetic compatibility, is actually a problem that all manufacturers are permanently struggling with, and that always causes corresponding costs, ending up in coils, in shieldings, heavy parts, filters, whatever is needed for. The advantages that we see here with our inverter concept comes first of all from the fact that we can adjust, or let's say we can slow down the switching speed of the devices. That means the turn-on slopes are being reduced due to the fact that we have no switching losses. This improves the EMC behavior considerably, since EMC is mainly produced by these flanges, the switching edges, and by the ringing followed on that. In addition of that, the ZVS inverter has a principle-related spread spectrum behavior. So this is a behavior that in other cases can only be achieved with additional effort in other electronic devices, not especially in inverters. And here we get it for free. So all this lets us believe that we will achieve a much better EMC behavior than conventional inverters do today.
Thank you, Harold. In the middle of the slide, we show some of the benefits, what results from the performance expansion and the efficiency possibilities. Ari's mentioned it, 13% increased range payload, improved energy density, new levels of motor efficiency. That's very, very key, not just the inverter, it's the concept. And eventually, as we've talked about with our enhanced powertrain solution, it's the elimination of the onboard charger. Again, less weight, less components, and a cost savings to the actual OEM. This is just an example. We wanted to point out that one other benefit, when you're in technology right now, the reason that companies are going to be wanting to talk about technology is the EVs are obviously, they're battery driven. And the batteries are, for the most part, if not 100%, they're all lithium. And we all know, we read the stories that there's a lithium shortage by 2025. Right now, there's 10.5 million EVs on the road. By 2050, they're talking about 2 billion EVs on the road. There'll be a shortage of lithium. Therefore, companies are looking for technology that it can expand the abilities of the batteries or assist in reducing the overall battery. We talked about the 1%, 2%. If 1% efficiency is improved by gained by deploying the Hillcrest ZVS, it could reduce batteries needed by as much as 2%. So if we can do 1%, you can reduce the size of the battery by 2%. If you take that, it works the same way. 5%, it's 10%. 10%, it's 20%. But if you take that all the way along, that means that using the same amount of lithium that's around today, that would be enough to make 40 40 million more EVs a year by 2050. If we can make the lithium that's available today, and to give you an example, I've seen two different numbers. There's 100,000 tons or 500,000 tons of lithium mined per year worldwide. The US alone has a demonstrated need for 350 million tons or 350,000 tons of lithium. So there's a massive shortage. Our technology assists in making the battery technology that much more efficient and less and goes much farther. One other thing that people have asked about is analyst and investor engagement. And we're establishing a robust foundation. We're working with Amvest Investor Relations. They're a group out of Connecticut. They have 18 clients, of which we're one of them. Well established within the field. We're very, very happy with them. We're actively building relationships with brokerage firms and microcap investors. And basically, we're advising them, we're educating them about our technology and our strategy. We're punching above our weight. We have been able to get into some of the largest investment banks in the U.S. In the last 4 or 5 months, and that's establishing a presence of credibility. They've been able to follow us from we said we were going to get the commercial prototype to having the commercial prototype, and it's resulted in requests for non-deal roadshows, get out on the road with them. It's had requests for us to consider uplisting to a U.S. exchange back with their backing. We're not there yet. There's certain things we have to do. And just recently, in the last week, a very well-respected technology publication, through an introduction of one of the investment banks, wrote a paper on us. They wrote a story on us, which was about our patent procedure and the technology we have. And it was nothing short of spectacular. So we're being picked up. We're pursuing paths that get us known from the PR side and from the credibility side. And I think that that's very, very, very important. We're using Singular Research. It gives us an opportunity to present to industry people and industry participants. When we presented in December in San Francisco, we had 5 family offices that have now engaged with us and are talking to us about how they may participate going forward. And one other thing that we want to talk about is that we have a very competent and credible partner in Germany. Systematic has added credibility to our company in a way that we can't explain. They're great partners to be involved with. So we have a German partner. We have European OEMs and tier 1 suppliers that we're talking to and heavily engaged in. And we have a retail market over in Europe that really doesn't know about us. So we're expanding our engagements in Europe. We had a company that was here talking to us 2 weeks ago in Vancouver. They are visiting the Systematic lab. They visited our lab. They're visiting that lab, and they're establishing a retail program for us to get some exposure in the European markets. We'll continue with that on the Canadian and on the American sides, but Europe is definitely a focus for us to be able to deploy capital to get more interest in the company. We're going to go on to question and answers. That's the most important part of this. But one of the things that we hope you took away from this, because the whole idea was to explain to everybody that we have multiple companies engaged, not just discussions, multiple companies engaged in commercialization engagement discussions. Management assumptions. We are now talking about the hundreds of millions of dollars that we assume we can get to based on conditions being met, definitive agreements, the market staying the same. Let's face it, there's going to be more EVs, that sort of thing. So we're kind of giving you an eye on what we think the prize is, and that happens fairly quickly. In this space, again, for us to do what we've done in 2 years, we can only imagine what we can accomplish in the next 2 or 3. So the value is there. The underlying value is there. And as long as no one else has perfected the technology to a point that we have, we don't have a competitor. We have partners. We have potential partners, and we have paths to do that. And I also think that when you look at it, when you're looking at the company, our team will stand behind at any given time. People are added to this company on a regular basis who not only have experience, capability, but they have networks. We are able to open doors with world-class companies based on the credibility of the people we brought into the company. And that's a big, big step for a company like ours. These are the people that have talked, and now we'll move it over to question and answer.
Excellent. Don, I understand you have some questions that were previously sent in, but I'm itching to ask one of my questions first, and
Sure.
it's actually one that was also sent in. So for people who don't understand the automotive industry and the changing automotive industry, the global industry, um, getting into the production line of any number of companies, and then getting government approval. I mean, it's all sorts of tests and things. How hard is it to integrate into a company and be adopted, and then getting safety approval in we're talking half a dozen jurisdictions here. What's the process?
James, do you want to take that?
You want me to take that? Yeah. So let me start high level, and then Ari and Harold can chime in with some particulars. But the one of the main reasons we've been very anxious to get to the application specific stage is that it's likely that our customers / partners will be the drivers of the details on all of that. So we will effectively become a subsystem in their system for which they will go and do most of that work. So we're expecting, rather than doing that ourselves, trying to be a universal one solution, we'll probably have them driving. Now, having said that, we do have a fair bit of insight and expertise in the kinds of things we need to do. So we're designing our product as we go, our various applications to meet lots of different requirements, like design for manufacturability, design for testability, functional safety, et cetera, et cetera. Now, some of that we haven't even started yet, but that will come as part of that late stage product design phase as well. We expect we're going to get lots of help with that.
All right. Don, your 5
Harold,
questions.
Ari, do you want to?
No, I think you nailed it.
Yeah. We got a couple of questions that have been sent in by shareholders, and I want to make sure that, and I think we've covered some of them. So, I won't repeat, but I want to make sure that if they've sent them in, that they get asked. The first one is, are there any near-term plans to introduce heat to the German investor community? I think I've explained that. It's a focus for us. I think it's a financially affordable program to go on. IR, so on, PR. There's a real value in showing Germany the presence that we through Systematic have, and so that's a key part to us. Four Seasons, it's going to come up. People are going to ask about them. So let me answer about Four Seasons. Very, very, very good company. One that's been involved with us for quite some time now. We haven't announced the actual agreement. We don't think it's at that point. Sorry. The point with Systematic is we've provided them with the information that they have requested, and they are now presenting it to, I would consider to be, very large organizations within their network. So Four Seasons is involved. Four Seasons is marketing with us and working with us, and are taking the information provided to them, spec sheets, so on and so forth, samples, and they're working with their network to add to that list of 6 or 7 that you saw at the very beginning. There was a question about ESG. Why ESG, and why are we focused on it, and would we cut back on it? The answer is, for those that don't know, ESG is environmental, social, and governance. The answer is absolutely not cut back on it. There's absolute data that confirms that companies who embrace ESG outperform their peers. The reality of ESG is simply this: when you're dealing with large institutional financing, they look at your ESG programs and policies first, the majority of the time. It is not something that's going away. It's something that we embrace, and we're mandating that where we need it or where we can apply, that we will move forward with it. So it's a very inexpensive process to move forward with, but has massive value going forward. And to not have an ESG focus would mean that you're closing the doors on so many numerous forms of funding and support. Some of the board are still oil and gas background. Is there a program to fill the board with tech backgrounds? The answer is yes. I've spoken about this before. We have interviewed people. There are certain things that we would like to improve on the board. add to the board, and those are tech-related people, experiences, capability with networks, so on and so forth. I think we're closer at this point in time. A company our size, there are certain things that we have to be aware of, including compensation is an issue. Involvement. None of our board members are not involved. They're actively involved, and we've got a very good board. So we're not looking for someone that just puts their name forward. We're looking for someone that can add value on more than just a quarterly basis. One of the details milestones for the MOUs, I think James showed that in the other page. Those are generic milestones, but they're all going to be different. I'll just go back to it. They're all going to have slightly different parts to it. Excuse me, I'm going through a head cold. They're all going to have slightly different parts, but these are the benchmarks, milestones that we work off of. And as we said, with the European OEM that has provided a motor, we've skipped a step. That's it can't overstate how valuable that is to us. There was a question for our Canadian friends about BNN. When at BNN and other types like that are Canadian based, I think when we look at any initiative that we're going to use for IR, PR, how we're going to get the news out, so on and so forth, how we're going to get new eyes on the prize, it has to come down to cost as well. So we look at cost versus perceived reward. And while BNN is a phenomenal organization, the cost reward at this point in time, based on some companies we've talked to and some institutions we've talked to, we don't know if either we're ready for them or we can afford what they're offering at this point in time. They're not off the table. We will look at them going forward, but at this point in time, it's a fairly sizable cost for even just getting your name on the ticker tag. So with that, I think I've asked the majority of the questions that don't repeat. With that, I'll pass it back over to you.
Manufacturing in bulk, how would you handle some of that?
Mm-hmm.
James, why don't you take it?
I'll take that. So yeah, so the by far the theme of our strategy here is to maximize the use of existing infrastructure. So there is capacity and expertise in place already in all of the places that we would want them to be to manufacture what we're going to need. So over the course of 2023, one of our major accomplishments is going to be lining up that manufacturing. So we've already engaged our network with some people who are very well connected and very familiar with that part of the industry. So we will be able to engage probably one or more partners in doing our serial manufacturing. In the meantime, Systematic can handle all of our prototyping manufacturing needs. I hope that does it.
Okay. Non-EV use, can you do it with other next generation type vehicles, plants, other industries, anything, any other perhaps?
Well, I'll start. I mean, basically it's power conversion. It's a power conversion platform. So it could be applied in a number of places, from renewable grid interconnect to marine propulsion systems, could be applied to certain other kind of isolated generation systems, islanded generation, UPS systems. There are many different places where this technology could be deployed. For us, EV is was job one. And then we see the grid connect market as the one that's close on its heels. You can see that in our table of prioritized work. That's really how we've kind of got things lined up. So the answer is yes. That's why when Don showed that earlier slide, this platform will be able to address a number of different industries. Some of them we haven't even talked about yet, but could still be out there. Anyone want to add anything to that, Don? Or
no, I think you've got that. We keep talking. It's a platform that creates a technology that can be used in many, many, many different uses. Power conversion. That's what it is.
What are electric vehicles using now, and how would this be so much better?
Harold, why don't you take a shot at that, because you understand best what the EVs are using now. Please.
Today they are using conventional inverters, mainly IGBT based. So most of them even only running on a 470 volt system. So, but it's fairly sure that the future will be in a high voltage, 800 to 900 volt system with silicon carbide devices. And using this inverter principle, this ZVS inverter principle, enables actually to really use the silicon carbide up to its limits. So what you see today is far from what we are talking here.
Yeah, and we haven't even mentioned in this whole webinar, for those that are new, our inverter technology that we have right now is 250 kilowatts, 800 volt, with a peak capacity of 350 kilowatts, 1,000 volts. So we're up at the higher end, and we're showing 50 kilowatts per liter power density, which again is at the higher end at this point in time. And we look forward to the next couple of months of giving you an idea or explaining to you how we're going to improve on that. That's the next stage. We'll do that at the next webinar or through press releases. Next question.
Don, it's probably worth mentioning too that in our product roadmap, we have a number of next gen and features and adds to the product line that are gonna set it up for use in some of these other areas, right? So we've got lots of good plans to build on the platform, and it'll put us in a great position for some markets that today we wouldn't be able to do in the short term.
Maybe just go over current cash needs, burn rate, future cash needs, corporate structure.
We're running a slim organization. Our burn rate is averaging about $450,000 a month, which is very low in the sector. About half of that, just a little less than half of that, is our commitment to the development and the continuation of the working relationship with Systematic, based on our discussions. I've already mentioned that we're aggressively approaching and talking to investment banks and larger institutions that have given us their criteria of where they want to see us and how they'll get involved. We're actually very positive on a couple of them where we will go from there. So we know that the next one of the next rounds of money is going to be a larger bit. We are exploring the idea of a strategic investment with the companies we're dealing with. That's a key component. We think that the companies, as we show, and James has already talked about, we're past the R and we're more into the D. As we show the development of the technology that works with them, we're quite confident that a strategic relationship or investment from one of the companies can occur, and that's a focus for ours too. So we're not sitting on a huge bank balance. We're watching the dollars as closely as we can, and our burn rate is very, very low, comparable to other companies in the tech sector.
Go forward a few years. When would you like to see? I guess what's your goal to have robust monetization of your project here, your work? What are we? 3 or 4 or 5 years? We might
look at that. Look at the years here. So when you go out to 2028, we're showing, management assumptions are basically 450 million, and I can tell you that's a very, very conservative number compared to what our estimates or our assumptions were showing, and that doesn't include grid. So you got a company that's valued at $30 million that has a path, has the team, the technology, and a path, we believe, to get there, and are talking to the right companies to get us there. Getting them to the commercial agreements, signing definitive agreements. We've already talked about the milestones, but revenues start becoming fairly substantial at 24, 25, and then my words, more than impressive after that. So once the technology is implemented in a model and they're selling 100,000 of those model, or they're doing whatever, well, that's when you're getting paid for the product. but you'll know the values well before. So I think it's a very steep rise in the values based on the management assumptions.
Very good. Let's end it here. So we're at the top. Don and team, why don't we move to close? Give us any further takeaways that we might need.
All right, it's kind of a recap for me. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We're in an industry that shows no limits to how big it's going to grow. We have a technology, to our knowledge, no one else has. We're showing a roadmap with our management assumptions of the types of revenues we believe we can get to in a very short period of time. We've done a lot in a very short period of time. We can't thank the investor base enough for their support, and I realize that they would like to see a more robust market. We're working on that. But as far as a company that's executing, building, and has a plan, we're that company, and we have the people to pull it off. So if you're investing in an idea with a team and has upsize, then I got to figure that we're the company you want to be looking at.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Hillcrest.
Thanks, everyone.
Energy Technologies.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.